All right, thank you so much for joining us on 89.7 Contact FM. Our sincere apologies for the delay in starting the show this particular moment due to some unavoidable circumstances, but definitely it is time to take a look at some of the new topics of the week, plus of course having new guests in here in this particular program. My name is Eugene Anangwe. I'm hosting Mr. Alex Mulisa. He is the coordinator at the fund management team of the Rwanda Green Fund. Welcome to One on One, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So very quickly, just to look at this fund that was launched a few weeks ago, there was a lot of excitement. We saw a walk being organized just to demonstrate the importance of what milestone Rwanda had made in launching this particular fund. Could you quickly just tell us, very quickly, who's going to be the beneficiary of this particular fund?
The beneficiaries are Rwandans entirely, but more specifically, the public sector, private sector, and the non-government organizations all have an opportunity to apply to the fund and get funding for projects that actually address the objectives of the fund.
So anybody with an idea that aims to tackle the issues of climate change is free to apply for the fund?
Absolutely.
What else do they need to present?
We have a two-stage application process. There's a project profile document, and then there is once they go past that stage, depending on whether they have sufficiently addressed the criteria that are required in that concept expression of interest, then they move to the next stage, which is the full proposal development. And should they be successful at both stages, as judged by different levels, the technical review process, the fund technical committee, and the fund managing committee, which is the board that makes the ultimate funding decisions, you get the money and move on to implementation. So
what that means is that when we look at the issues, you've said public and private and ordinary Rwandans. So at what level does the public sector then apply for this fund?
The fund as is envisioned, both in the law, addresses issues of climate change, issues of environmental sustainability, and the overall green concepts that address development. What that means is that a public sector can have funding for basic implementation of other projects, but as long as they can be able to demonstrate that they have a component that addresses those three areas that constitute the objectives of the fund, then they can get additional funding to their original project, or the project entirely could be addressing that and they get funding.
So how then do we have favorable competition? Because you have a common citizen probably studying at a university in Kigali, in parts of Kigali, competing with a government institution that already has, startup capital, startup budget to implement their green project or whatever project they're running. How do you explain the fair play in this kind of situation?
Exactly as I indicated, the application process addresses exactly the defining ideas, and they are judged based on the quality and their ability to address the core objectives. I don't know how much we have been able to understand this, but the sustainable development concept is somewhat challenging, not only at the level of Rwanda, but internationally. So what we are actually doing is, first of all, the fund is demand-driven. What that means is that anybody who has an idea can come in and has a fair shot.
How do you explain that aspect that I'm asking in terms of fair competition? Because you have someone probably who has added advantage, because most of the time, how different is it from applying for other kind of funding where you're asked for, you want 100 million, for example, and you are told you need at least 30 or 50% of that. How does that student with a green project manage to compete with a government institution that already has that percentage, and yet he doesn't.
Absolutely. One of the things that we look for is the idea, and that's where I was going.
All right.
In terms of co-financing, much as we encourage it, because it also demonstrates the ability and the willingness of the applicant to invest, it is not mandatory.
Okay.
Right. So that creates a platform for everybody who has an idea that can address those areas I have mentioned, has a fair shot at the fund itself.
So it's not mandatory to share the cost.
I will qualify that.
Okay.
Except for private sector, and there is a reason behind it.
What's the reason?
The reason is the fact that we don't want to clog the market. Private sector is considered, first of all, you are in a business.
Okay.
So you have a starting point. So one of the we have two types of financial instruments. One is the grant, innovation grant. The other one is the credit line. Now, in the innovation grant, we are attracting innovative ideas from people who already are in the market, the private sector. And the mandatory requirement is to have 25% of the investment.
Okay.
That is strictly for the private sector. Then there is the credit line, which we have partnered with BRD by investing in BRD 70%, and they add 40%, rather 30%.
30, yes.
And it reduces the interest rate to around 11.45, way below the market interest rate. That is intended to attract investments for people with heavy investments in the energy sector, and we have seen some who at least want the benefit of lower interest rates. But will be paying back, and by so doing, make the fund a revolving fund to address other private sector.
It keeps growing.
Right.
So now the fund was launched. There was pomp and color. There was celebration. Now we are talking about it. What next from here? What do we already have as we speak today?
Matter of fact, just to take you back a bit, the fund launched 2 years in its operation.
Okay.
What that means is that we had already started operating.
So what was happening the previous week was what? For those who didn't understand.
Yes, exactly. What was happening last week was the fact that this fund started as a project.
Okay.
And now, but with the intent ultimately to be taken over by the government, because it is a government fund mandated by law. So what we were doing is the 2 year marked the transitioning from the project to the government ownership, and in terms of the management team itself. So that is what was being marked by the launch itself.
Okay. So you didn't tell me again also the steps that we've already done so far today. You've said it's been in existence for the past 2 years, right?
Right.
And this process was just a phase of transiting into now handing over to the government, or our government taking over management. So what have we been able to achieve so far in these 2 years and in this short period of handing over or full takeover by the government?
Okay. On October 1st, 2012, the fund opened the shop with the setup of the management team to be able to run operations.
This is 2012.
2012. In 2012, December.
How many grants or credit lines did we manage to give during this period?
Yeah, just a minute.
Okay.
Just the trade of what happened.
Okay.
Then very quickly, I can say you want us to get to the real
because of the time. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Very quickly, around June, we got funding, significant funding, which we call seed capitalization from from UK's DFID. Then we started the call for proposals. To date, we have 18 projects that have already been funded.
18 in 2 years.
18 in 2 years.
What does that say?
In real sense, in 1 year.
In 1 year.
Right.
Even though 1 year only, but climate change issues being a big concern for not just Rwanda but globally. When you say 18 in 2 years or 1 year, what does that tell you?
To put it in context,
yes,
we have already committed 20 billion Rwandan francs to these projects.
All right.
In real sense, even on a global scale, that is unparalleled.
20 billion.
Right. No, what I mean, even 18 projects worth 20 billion Rwandan francs is unparalleled in terms when you compare where other funds, similar funds, how they have been operating around the world. Just to put it in context, there are at least 5 funds that I know of. 3 of them in Africa, 1 in Ethiopia, 1 in South Africa, and by fair comparison, Rwanda has moved so fast, so far in so short a time.
Okay.
Other projects, other funds have not even seen any project coming through, and that is how rigorous this process is. But much more seriously, that is how it becomes difficult to be able to come up with a project that is convincing. We have done that so far with 18 projects.
All right. So these 18 projects, what or how do we do impact assessment analysis? How can we say that they have been able to reduce the risk that the ozone layer is facing with, carbon emissions? What can we say? What can we say that they have been able to achieve so far?
Again, we have to put things in context. Development, as you certainly know it, takes time, right? What we have is a monitoring and evaluation system that is tight, that targets these objectives we talked about. That is carbon emission reductions.
Yes.
That is adaptation projects in terms of protection of rivers, soil erosion and all that. And we have a broad range of projects that start with the ecosystem rehabilitation, watershed, the likes of watershed management.
So we've been able to rehabilitate some places.
Yes.
Can we mention a few projects that we can say these are thumbs up projects we've managed to do?
We have a project running in Rwamagana, implemented by Sendekau, where they have a range of project activities that are on the ground right now.
Yes.
We have a project in Burera that we are supporting. We were there on Lake Burera itself. That is being implemented. We have a project, a hydro project at Gachenye that is currently underway through the BRD component of private sector support.
Okay.
So
many projects, right? All right. So it's up to now the media and those concerned to visit these particular projects,
and they have started
firsthand.
doing that.
Okay.
Right.
Now, quick takeaways as we finish. This whole climate change issue that we keep hearing about, do you think people are over-exaggerating the impact? And do you think that we are just being too scared of what might happen in the next few years? Because people say within a few years to come, parts of the world or most of the world will be underwater. People telling you, there might be no rains anymore, hailstorm and all that. Are we exaggerating? And if indeed these are true facts, what then are the risks and dangers if nothing is done urgently?
For every issue in history, as we have seen it, to the magnitude at least of climate change, there are always, naysayers, there are always skeptics. And so climate change is no exception. But the reality is the issues that we are confronting are very real. We know what happened in the Philippines. We know what happens in Bangladesh. They have a fund, by the way, to the tune of 100 million to address that. But coming specifically home, what we have seen, and unfortunately we can't show a map, but when you see areas that are prone to landslides, to floods, this problem is real.
It's real.
The droughts in the eastern province, it's real.
This is climate change.
Yes, and to us it hits hard, and even hardest when we consider that we are a subsistence community.
Yes.
In the sense that over 80% of our population depends on subsistence farming.
Yes.
What does that mean? It means rain fed. It means we are threatened from the food security standpoint, energy standpoint. So how do we develop in the midst of all of that? Estimates, there was a study conducted in 2009 that brought all this to head, which indicated that 1% of GDP of Rwanda is undermined because of climate change, and this is going to continue up to 2030. Mate.
Wow.
So the whole question now is, how do we survive if we don't confront that head on? It will require between 50 and $300 million a year for us to be able to make a difference, to be able to address climate change in a way that we continually see development and growth as we have been seeing it.
As your parting shot, do you think this fund is the savior? Do you think this is what we really needed to help us sort this out?
A savior, I don't know, but for sure it's making a difference, and making a difference in ways that are actually creating opportunities for Rwandans across the whole spectrum. We talk in economic terms. If it is creating opportunities for energy, for renewable energy at that, and it makes us less dependent on energy that comes from fuels we import from, that is significant.
All right.
If it creates a difference in terms of enhancing productivity of the land through the terracing, it certainly makes a difference, because one of the key things that has been talked about is we export soil to Egypt, which needs it so much. We could use that soil, and this fund provides that level of intervention.
So we export it through erosion.
Right.
All right, Alex, thank you so much for your time. This is all we had time for. And of course, we definitely are closely monitoring, and we'll be able to offer that support that you need. And of course, we're hoping that people will tap into this fund and be able to change or make a difference.
Absolutely.
There you have it, one-on-one
Thank
featuring the Green Fund, or the Rwanda Green Fund, right here. And of course, I've been hosting Alex right here in the particular program. My name is Eugene Anangwe, signing off. Let's keep Rwanda green all the way. Goodbye for now.